AFA.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome, everybody, to today's issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I am joined in studio by Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
And good morning.
Nothing else?
I always hesitate to start too soon.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably going to get in trouble at some point in the program. I don't want to, do it too soon.
Listen, you're on the right show if you're thinking about people getting in trouble.
Okay.
We get in trouble all the time on this program.
Fair enough.
Nothing wrong with that. Fred Jackson, good morning to you, sir.
But not me.
You don't get in trouble?
I did.
You do what Brother Bert does on Exploring the Word. When things get hot, you just pitch the question to us.
Over to you, Alex.
You guys go off the cliff. I'll watch.
Right. Yeah.
You leave your wallet on the top of the cliff. I'll return it to your family.
But that's right. But since 1977, since AFA has been in existence, we have not hardly covered many controversial issues of any kind.
That's right.
Or tiptoed around anything. So, but today will be the first time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Obviously, tongue-in-cheek, being sarcastic there. Looking forward to today. We've got, as the program's called, Today's Issues, so we will cover the issues of today.
That's right. And, the fact of the matter is, guys, we're on this show is 90 minutes, roughly 90 minutes. And this isn't scripted. I mean, we do go over the stories we're going to cover, but our opinions, what we plan on saying, it's not scripted. We all have other jobs, tasks we're working on between our meeting in the morning and the show. So, when someone throws a question to any of us and says, "Hey, what do you think about this?" It's not always easy to say something that doesn't get you in trouble.
That's right. Well, also, too, even within that, occasionally we'll also have a breaking story that comes in that we didn't even talk about at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
Too. So that'll happen, too. So where do we go with the negative comments? Oh, or only encouraging comments.
Yes.
Where do we go with that?
Encouraging only. So
I think, is it AF? What is it, Adam?
Oh,
comments.
Comments at AFR.net.
Comments at AFR.net. There you can send all your positive, encouraging comments. I did mention a couple weeks back about using that email. If you have something that you want us to cover, we don't promise anything because we've got, there's a lot of things that go into, planning a program. But we'd be interested to know if there's something you want us to cover. If we can get to it, we will.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, that does sometimes take a day or two for your email to comments at AFR.net to find their way upstream, downstream, whatever you want to call it, to the right person. So there's somebody who monitors that. Well, I was going to say upstream, but I didn't want to imply that we're elitists here.
Okay, that's fair.
It'll find its way to the superior intellects. Upstream, yeah. So sometimes we're upstream, sometimes we're downstream.
That's true.
All right.
That's true.
Fred, start us off and get us into trouble. What's the story?
We're going to have a moment on today's program. From time to time, we've been known to be critical of President Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling a little bit sorry for him this morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a video making the rounds. In fact, it's on the front of Fox News right now. There was an event at the White House yesterday, Juneteenth, and there was music being played at one point. I think it was a live performance, a very upbeat performance. And the video shows people kind of dancing and clapping and that sort of thing.
Moving to the beat.
Yeah. But President Joe Biden is not moving. Now, there's a headline that says Biden appears to completely freeze as VP and others dance next to him at Juneteenth event. Well, he is 80 years old or 81.
80, I think he's 81.
81. And I have to say, if there was young, youthful, energetic music playing and I was in the room, I probably wouldn't be dancing along with it. I think it was an awkward moment for the president. He's 81 years old, and the people around him are much younger. Now, the vice president is next to him, and she's clapping and moving. And
Moving to the beat.
do I say jiving? Is jiving? Is that?
You shouldn't have gone there.
Shouldn't have gone there.
Jiving.
Anyway, her husband
Fred.
is I don't know. I'm old.
We were just talking about putting your foot in your mouth.
Yeah.
Jive.
Anyway, her husband, Kamala Harris' husband, now he's not moving and grooving either.
No.
There you go, moving and grooving. That's
Yeah.
the word.
Moving
that's
and
it.
grooving. But so at this moment, I just want to say I feel sorry for the president. I don't think he was in his element at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's unfair to say it had to do with him in a complete freeze. I just
Because the implication was he's in a complete freeze because of his age again. He's doing something. I agree. We did talk about this, and all I had seen was the little video that goes along, the little 2-second video clip that goes along with the headline on Fox, and it loops. And so it does appear like he's like a deer caught in the headlights and frozen, but that's because it's being looped. Exactly right. I don't think you're jive talking, Fred, on this. We need to try to be fair to the president.
Yeah.
He's got enough absolutely wicked ideas in play. We can criticize those, but it looks like. Listen, I was never a good dancer. Even when I was in high school, I was not a good dancer. At 81 years old, I would just be trying to stand upright. And besides, nowadays, if you're in the left side of the camp in this country, Wesley, you're terrified if you're white, like the president.
Sure.
You're terrified of making a mistake that's going to anger part of your base.
On Juneteenth.
And the Juneteenth, of course, is it's a federal holiday. It is especially celebrated in the black community as it is a recognition of the end of slavery. I think all Americans should celebrate that, obviously. But he is amongst, for the most part, a bunch of black people. The white people are on the left are so scared of cultural appropriation and taking the culture that would include dancing. So if he did freeze, I wouldn't blame him because if he made a mistake, he would hear about it.
Yeah, I think he made the right call here. Now I don't know if he knows he made the right call, but no, I don't think. I think this is just another day in the news outlet where they're looking for something because they don't got something.
Right.
Okay, I want to get back to because Joe Biden did unload at Juneteenth yesterday with what race baiting is what we would call. But there's breaking news right now out of Delaware. The jury in the Hunter Biden case has reached a verdict. We do not know what it is at this very moment,
but we'll get it.
But we will get it very shortly.
It doesn't appear. We're looking. We mentioned this before on this show. We have a television in here with. And the screen is split in 4, and there are different news outlets. So 4 different news outlets. There's Fox, CNN, BBC, and MSNBC, and they are
reporting.
They are reporting that the verdict is to be read in the Hunter gun trial soon.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. We talked about this at our story meeting this morning. I felt this would be a quick one. Now, obviously, we're not sure how the jury's going to go on this. I would say, listening to all the evidence that came in during the trial last week, there was an abundance of evidence to support the charge against Hunter Biden.
Right.
That he was using hard drugs when he filled out that form to purchase that gun, and that form had a checkbox that said, I'm not using drugs, or something along that line. The evidence, including some family members of Hunter Biden, was ample, I'll put it that way. Now, this is taking place in Delaware. The Biden family has many friends there. Could it be a possibility that at least some jury members are good friends with the Biden family and feel sorry for the Biden family? The First Lady, Jill Biden, was in the courtroom every day
Right.
to support Hunter Biden. So it can go either way, but I think if it was to go with the evidence, they would have to find him guilty.
Yeah.
But we should know momentarily.
And I will just say this. My guess is that this is not a hung jury because that seems like it would take longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing we are going to get a relatively clear cut. Either I think we think he's innocent or we think he's guilty. I would also say I read something this morning that President Joe Biden was asked whether he would pardon Hunter
Yes.
if he was found guilty.
I didn't see that was the answer.
He said no.
Yes.
I personally don't believe that.
Sure.
I think if he is found guilty and is going to be sentenced to prison,
Mm-hmm.
I think Joe Biden would probably pardon.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Okay, back to Juneteenth at the White House yesterday. The president was extremely animated in a speech that he gave at that event. And sadly, as he's been known to do in the past, he decided to play the race card and to be warning black people that if you don't vote Democrat in this coming election, you are going to be persecuted by the other side. So here's a little bit of the Biden speech from yesterday, cut one.
But let's be clear. They're old ghosts in new garments trying to take us back. Well, there are. Taking away your freedoms, making it harder for black people to vote. Or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity. Attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
None of those things is true.
right.
That's the bottom line in this.
You know, Wesley, this is, first of all, I think part of the reason why the president spends so much time race baiting is because I think in the Democratic Party, there is some concern that a certain percentage, I have no idea how large, but a certain percentage of black votes, especially amongst black men in this country, might be drifting towards President Trump, and President Biden has to shore up that support by race baiting. Except for activists who love that kind of stuff, I'm not sure how the average black person in this country is going to take that bait when they are, like everybody else, drowning at the grocery store.
Yeah, I think when President Trump was in office, I think that was probably a little bit more effective for him. But now most people are more concerned about what's happening at the border. They're more concerned about their wallets. We've talked about this, several times a week leading up to the election. That I think they're looking through that, the race baiting, and more concerned about, because you'd have to give, to your point, you got some that believe that to nauseum, where it's irrational and it's just about race for them and no logic. But to your point is, I think a lot of voters are looking past, especially on the left. A lot of Democrats are looking past the color of people's skin and more concerned about finances. Now, we remember a couple years back, 50 Cent, who is a rapper, he's a black rapper. He said, talking specifically about the Democrat policies of New York, he said, "Well, I'm going to vote for Trump because I don't want to be 20 Cent. I want to be
right."
Because he was talking about the
finance, yeah,
the
absolutely.
finances, talking about the tax policy. He falls under the tax bracket under the Biden policy of like 60% taxes.
Right.
And he was like, I don't want that. So he himself, who is a longtime black voting Democrat, is more concerned about his pocket than the color of skin.
Fred, we're seeing on television now the Hunter Biden verdicts are in.
Yes, guilty on all charges.
Yep.
Count one, false statement with regards to the firearms sale, guilty. Count two, false statement, transaction record, guilty. Count three, illegal possession of a firearm, guilty.
Yes.
That makes him a felon, correct?
Yes.
I believe that's right.
He's a felon. He would not be allowed to own a gun.
Those are probably the only crimes he's ever committed, though.
Yeah.
I mean, just those three, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you make
right,
right.
So,
yes.
listen, I'm just going to tell you, I'm a little surprised. I thought I thought that Delaware jury
You
would.
think another one would just get away?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
really
kind
did.
of yeah.
I really did. So now, of
not,
course,
not because of the evidence, just because of how these things usually play out.
right,
Yep, I know. what you're
politically
talking about.
biased.
Yep.
So I am surprised, guilty on all 3 counts. Now, sentencing has not occurred yet.
No.
So
No.
we don't know if he will actually go to prison, if he has to pay fines, or both. Maybe he gets probation. Maybe he gets
House
some
arrest.
other house arrest.
We don't know.
Listen, I would think that the judge, so here I go predicting again, I would think that since Hunter Biden is such a well-known figure of the president of the United States, his son, they may decide on house arrest just for his own safety. But who knows? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think he'll do prison time.
Right.
I don't think so. In this case, I would be very surprised. I think there will be a hefty fine. Of course, they're going to appeal this.
Right.
So this is going to go on. But this is, don't forget, there is another trial coming, which some people say is even more serious.
Yeah.
Having to do
Tax
with
evasion.
tax evasion.
Yeah.
And that's coming up in that jurisdiction is California. So we'll have to wait and see. But as I was saying, having followed this now in the last 10 days and the evidence that the prosecution put forward, and don't forget, this is Joe Biden's DOJ
Right.
leading the charge on this. Statements are going to be made from the left. The Justice Department is not biased because the right has been saying that
Right.
about Trump. So now they're going, they're going to be up. The Biden side is going to be able to say, see, the justice did its job here.
Yeah.
And they found my son guilty. So we'll have to wait and see. I think there'll be a period here. Arguments are going to have to be made, be pre-sentence arguments
Right.
from both sides. What Hunter Biden what penalty he has to pay. But we'll wait and see. But guilty on all charges.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, that is breaking news regarding the trial, the Hunter Biden trial. And as we mentioned, I don't even know how long it'll take for sentencing, for the sentencing hearing and decision to be made. And then, like you said, there may be appeals. If I was Hunter Biden, I would just say, I'm not going to appeal it. Let's just try to get some sort of reduced sentence with house arrest, community service, fine.
Yeah.
I don't think the guy's hurting for money.
No.
So pay the fine and move on. I don't know how it would help him to appeal this. I think the evidence was pretty overwhelming.
It was.
So
It was.
anyway,
All right. More bad news for the Biden reelection campaign today because there is a new poll out this morning, AP NORC poll out this morning, on his student loan bailout and where the American people are with that. And the news is not good. Only 3 in 10 U.S. adults say they approve of that multi-billion-dollar bailout plan. Very, very interesting. And this is AP NORC, which is not a conservative
Right.
organization. But what they were finding is that even people who might benefit from this are amongst those who are opposed to it.
Wow, that's interesting. I
Yes.
would think I do think if you don't have student loans or you're past that or you never did, I can see that category being 100% against it. But I would think that a lot of people that have it would be more caught up in the emotions of it and not the logic of it and say, yes, I support it. So you're saying it's actually the opposite?
Well, at least some in the no category, in the
Okay.
category that are saying, no, I don't agree with this. And I think for the same reasons, we've talked about this bailout a number of times on this program. I think the issue is fairness
right.
for a lot of
Okay,
people.
Yeah,
Not to mention the size of this.
sure.
Right.
You know, number one, a lot of people, the criticism is he's just trying to buy youth vote
Right.
Yeah.
and using taxpayers' dollars to do it. Remember, the Biden administration basically ignored a Supreme Court ruling
Right.
that said they didn't have the authority to do this. And so they've done some kind of, they say, workaround. That
Yeah, Joe Biden even admitted this.
Yes.
The Supreme Court said I couldn't, but we found a way.
We found a way. And the other thing is there's a lot of resentment amongst people who have already paid off their student loans. There's a resentment amongst people who decided, I'm not going to go to university. I'm going to be a welder.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something else that doesn't require a university education.
And so my
And
tax
that's
dollars are paying.
And that's growing
Yes.
a lot, especially in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
So I see what you're saying.
So I think the American people, and working also against Biden throwing all this money out there, is people are hurting in this economy.
Right.
And I think any discussion that has to do with more, if they can connect it to taxpayer dollars, I think anything along those lines, right now, people are just not. They're fed up with it for the most part. They're
Right.
fed up with any discussion of our tax dollars going to anything.
Because people are hurting in a number of areas.
Financially.
So
yeah.
people who took out college loans were not forced to do it.
No.
They voluntarily did this.
Yeah.
And so you have people who might be having a hard time paying their mortgages
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, why is the government bailing them out?
Yes.
I mean, I'm having a hard time as well. I didn't go to college, or I did go to college and I paid mine off. So why are they getting a break from the government and no one's giving me a break for my mortgage? So there's still a lot of people who think in those terms.
Do we happen to have, Fred, do we happen to have any more specifics or details? I know it's out there. I just haven't seen it on exactly how he would go about this. Like, where does it start? Does it start when if you've got $50,000? Does it start if you've got $100,000 debt? Does it start if you've got 2 years of college or 4 years? I just wonder the specifics to his strategy of paying off, and here's a question: who qualifies?
Yeah, I think there's a long list of stipulations on
Okay.
this. Amongst those stipulations are that you've had to be making a good effort to start to pay it off.
Okay.
All right. So and so
I'm not laughing at you. I just think
yeah, there has to be some qualifications on
Sure.
this, but a lot of people are in that category.
yes.
They've started to make the monthly payments or yearly payments, and so they qualify for this.
Gotcha.
So
And one of the reasons I ask is because if you're right there on if you have student loans but you don't quite follow their qualifications, you're mad.
mhm.
Yes.
If you're close,
Right.
but you don't quite make it, now we need some more exceptions.
Yes.
I
There would be a group, there'd be a percentage of people
you're good.
who would
Yeah.
think that as well.
You're when you introduce this type of ideology or this type of idea, then you're creating people that will be mad because you're excluding somebody somewhere
Right.
that would not have otherwise been excluded if you didn't say I'm going to pay your debt.
It's the
With
same
that-
kind of thing with ideas like reparations.
Yes. It's
Because
very-
reparations, you have to have, you have to figure out, okay, who would qualify for reparations? How
Who we're
do
not
we
leaving out.
determine who's a descendant of a slave? And just how big a percentage? What if you're only 25%
Yes.
the descendant of a slave? So, to your point, once you start handing out free money,
You got-
everybody wants it, and
something,
you have to draw some lines. You have to draw a box around it
You're
somehow.
creating somebody mad. You're getting
Yes.
someone mad unnecessarily that wouldn't otherwise be mad if you didn't get involved in this.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. All right, so folks, we are going to take a short break. I mean, we have to take a break. This kind of genius that we have been exhibiting
It
here.
needs a 2-minute
We
rest.
need a cool down period for our brains.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Pastor Joseph Parker, who is an employee here, been many years on staff with us. He works on a project involving the 10 Commandments. We're going to ask him to come and explain that to you.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Centuries ago, a man wrote, "I keep working toward that goal." He had not arrived, yet he continued to work at arriving. This man knew a great truth of life, a truth which kept him working at the task. Paul knew that the thrill of life is in trying. Success in life often brings satisfaction, but the thrill which life offers is in trying to be successful. The thrill of life comes not from achieving our goal, but in the attempt to achieve it. The thrill is in trying. Our goals in life should always be a little beyond our reach. This keeps us trying. As long as we have a goal in front of us, just a little beyond our reach, we have something to work toward. This makes life worth living. You know, life would be meaningless for me unless I had a goal that was a little beyond my reach. Back when I first started writing, I couldn't even give my work away. I approached many publishers with a manuscript for my first book, and I'm sure not a few of them had a good laugh about it. But I wanted to write, and regardless of what others had to say, I continued to try. Now, since that first effort, I've been able to accomplish some rather, for myself at least, good goals. But for me, the thrill is not so much in accomplishing the goal as it is in trying to accomplish that goal. Each time I nearly reach a goal I've set for myself, I push it just a little bit higher because the thrill is in trying. We should never let the fear of failing keep us from experiencing the thrill of trying. We should never cease to try to go higher and farther because of fear we will not make it. We will be richer simply because we tried. And also, whether we make it or not, we can experience the thrill which comes from trying. Perhaps you've wanted to do some things but have not attempted them because you were fearful you could not accomplish them. Well, attempt them. Go at them with the best you have. Do not be afraid because you might fail. Make an effort. You will be richly rewarded, and you will also receive the thrill that comes in trying. The thrill of following the carpenter from Galilee is in trying. You know, when you are a Christian, you're always working toward a goal which you know you will never reach. But there is a tremendous thrill in trying to reach that goal. God is continually calling us to be a little bit better, a little bit bigger than we are. Like Paul, we never arrive, but we keep working toward that goal. The man of Galilee himself experienced the thrill of trying. The odds against his accomplishing what he attempted to accomplish in the manner in which he attempted it were infinitely great, but he was willing to try. The thrill, I say again, the thrill is in trying. Ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Our fondest dreams, the dreams God has planted in our heart, can come true. And the thrill of life is in trying to make them come true.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
This only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27, verse 4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
And welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined by Wesley Wildman and Fred Jackson. Folks, we mentioned before the break that the Hunter Biden trial has concluded with a guilty verdict on all charges for Hunter Biden. Fred, you're going to update our listeners in terms of where they could find some good information on this.
Yes, you can go to afn.net, and there's a story that's just been posted there to give you all the latest details. 3 charges, found guilty on all 3 counts. These are felony, and so now he's a convicted felon, and we will have to wait. I'm not sure how long, but we'll have to wait and see what the verdict is. But the options for the prosecution and for the judge is quite a lengthy period of prison if they elect to go that route, and or fines. But this is the jury only deliberated for an hour yesterday afternoon and just an hour this morning. So they went into this, I guess, with a clear-cut conviction that the evidence that they heard, and there was overwhelming evidence that indeed he purchased that gun in 2018 when he was still on very hard drugs.
Right.
And that is a violation of federal law. You know, somebody has pointed out that federal law is something that the Biden administration has pushed.
Yes.
In the way of greater gun restrictions. And so they can't very well criticize the law in this case. And it's going to be very hard to debate the fact that he was using drugs when he purchased that weapon.
Mm-hmm. Right, and thus lied on the background check,
Yes.
the federal form,
Yes.
and checked the box that said, no, I'm not taking illegal drugs,
Yes.
and so that's part of the charges for which he was convicted. Just briefly, just let our listeners know, those who don't know, AFN.net you mentioned is American Family News. Just briefly explain what that is and why we encourage people to sign up for that.
Absolutely. American Family News, our website, AFN.net, is the net version of what you hear at the top of the clock here on American Family Radio every day. And we give you the latest details. We have our own team of reporters that's getting reaction to the major stories of the day. And in this case, as this case would illustrate, we give you the breaking news also.
Right.
We have a contract with the Associated Press. And in a big story like this, we get that story out there right away. So if you can go there right now, AFN.net, get this latest story on Hunter Biden, plus all the other stories our guys are working on, Jody Brown and his team, who put those stories together each day. Some of the stories you've heard on our radio newscast this morning are now in print on that site. By the way, we can send you a daily email of a summary of the major news from a Christian perspective. If you go up to the right-hand side of AFN.net, you can just put your email in there, sign up for that daily email. We will only send you that email one time a day, Monday through Friday. And that'll give you a great summary of the day's news from a Christian perspective.
And then if you just click through, you not only go to that story, but you can get to AFN.
Yes.
Because there's other things there that you can, the videos
Yes.
of things that are happening here and abroad.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
speaking about Hunter Biden lying,
Yes.
that would be a ninth commandment.
Yes.
You should not lie.
I like that.
So what are we doing about the 10 Commandments to make sure people know?
Hey, great question. I love that transition. Way to go.
And we missed the fist bump, but
We
nobody
missed it.
saw it. I said it. If I hadn't said anything, nobody would have known.
That's right. That's right. Pastor Joseph Parker is here with us. He's been on today's issues many times before. He hosts Hour of Intercession. Folks, you can either listen at 3 a.m. Central Time. Some people are up. They're working a different shift. They're traveling or whatever. Or you can go and download the podcast for that. Pastor Joseph, welcome to today's issues.
Good to be with you all today.
Now, I asked you during the break how long you've been in the pastorate or preaching ministry, and you said since you were
5 days.
Since you were 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's very nearly 50 years.
2 years be 50 years.
That's right. So
That's where I got the joke with the 5 days. Because I heard y'all talking when I walked in. He said 50, and I was like, whoa.
that is
congratulations.
That is a great thing, a great testimony. But it was funny. You did mention your first church.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even have a car. How did you get to church?
Well, Dad and Mom drove me.
So at 16 years old, you were pastoring a church.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Awesome.
All right, to Wesley's point, the 10 Commandments. So this is, by the way, Pastor Joseph has a deep and abiding and holy passion for the pro-life cause, but also for the 10 Commandments, making sure that the 10 Commandments remain influential in our culture. So Explain to our listeners a little bit about your approach here on the Ten Commandments.
Well, thank you, Ed. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you all. I think it's so good for us to know that, we live in a day and time in which people today are often, sadly, too many are trying to put down the Old Testament. God's Word, it's all Jesus, Old and New Testament. And the Ten Commandments is the moral law of God, which never changes. And they're just as relevant today as they ever were. So it's important for believers to understand that. And even as we talk about issues in the news, some of the biggest challenges and problems in our news are a result of people violating the Ten Commandments. So they're very relevant, and grateful to get a chance to do the project. We've been doing the Ten Commandments project for several years now, and specifically as we're looking at this speech challenge, it got underway June 1st, and it goes to June 30th, and we're inviting young people ages 7 to 17. We're asking them to write, either write a speech or have someone help them write a speech on, in years gone by, we've dealt with a specific commandment. This year, the topic is, why are the Ten Commandments important? Which really is a great topic because they're so relevant. They're so relevant to what we see in our culture, literally every day in the news and in our culture on TV. Well, and so we suggest that it be 3 to 5 minutes, but actually any length is fine. And we invite them to record it on their cell phone or on a recording device, upload it to afr.net/10 commandments. Write the word 10 commandments out. afr.net/10 commandments. And we're inviting the students to do that. And again, the deadline, as I said, is the 30th of June. And each participant will get a free 10 Commandments T-shirt, a bookmark, and also will be able to get a free resource out of the AFA resource bookstore as well.
And
so if you go to afr.net, though, there's also a banner running across the top. You can click, so go to afr.net, you can click the banner as well. That takes you straight to the page. It's got all the details that Pastor Joseph just mentioned and any other potential questions that you could have about this as well.
We've watched some of these in our devotions. And let me tell you, folks, if you
inspiring,
yes, if you get discouraged sometimes about young people, because older people always get discouraged about young people, but they learned to sin a lot of times from older people, so we don't get off the hook. But if you ever get discouraged about young people, you ought to check out. Now, do we have past ones on the website for people to look at?
We do.
Videos?
I have to go back and see exactly where to find them on the website, but we do. We actually do.
So, listen, we get inspired in devotions. Sometimes we'll watch these. Pastor Joseph will upload some for us to watch in devotions. And it is very encouraging, Wesley, to see the passion these young people have for the truth of God's Word and the moral law.
This year, we're going to go even further than we've gone in the past as to make the most use of this project, because when the project's over, all of the ones that we have on hand, if the parents has agreed, we're going to re-air those on AFR for the following month to inspire and encourage those that are listening to the network. So
Wonderful.
If you want to participate in encouraging someone, or you want to participate in inspiring someone in learning Scripture and learning the importance of the Ten Commandments, by participating in this, and you'll get to be on AFR.
Right.
So we'll be able to re-air some of these in the near future following the conclusion of the project. Obviously, what Pastor Joseph mentioned too, participating, you get a T-shirt, a Ten Commandments T-shirt, a bookmark, and a free item from the Resource Center of your choosing. So I'm thankful that Pastor Joseph is leading this effort. All the information, you go to afr.net/10 commandments. My final question for you, Pastor Joseph: who benefits from the Ten Commandments? Is there a portion of people that benefit from the Ten Commandments?
Everybody. And one of the truths behind that too is that, like, amongst other things, I think one thing that we've learned is that the church really needs to put kids to work in the kingdom. Because I recall the year Roe v. Wade was overturned. It just so happened, what God in His sovereignty had us do, you shall not murder. We ended up with 37 speeches. Every one of them was powerful. But what was really neat is that many of the children were bolder to say things than many politicians and preachers were willing to say about the truth. And powerful, but you see the Holy Spirit working mightily all over these kids as they share truth.
Well, and you have and parents, you have no idea how this might impact your children,
Right.
right, Pastor Joseph? I mean, they start thinking and praying about what they want to say. They say it. They hear themselves saying it, and you have no idea how that word is going to transform your young people.
Exactly.
So
The
make
Holy
it kind of a
Spirit.
family, make it kind of a family project, and get involved. So you go to
AFR.net.
AFR.net/10 Commandments to see more about this exciting project. Now, Pastor Joseph, we're going to let you go, but you also encourage people to pray the 10 Commandments. Explain what that is, and then please lead us in that prayer before you go.
Okay. You know, the Word of God tells us the prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective, and we would be wise as the church daily to pray the 10 Commandments because, again, the fact is they help us address some of the biggest challenges in our community. So we're going to take time to do that now. Father, thank you, Lord, for us as the church, and thank you for us as a nation. Help us, Lord, as the church and as a nation to put you first. Help us to make no graven images. Help us, Lord, to not take your name in vain. Help us, Lord, to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. Help us to honor our fathers and our mothers. Help us to not murder. Help us to not commit adultery. Help us to not steal. Help us to tell the truth, and help us to not covet. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor Joseph. We're very appreciative of the work that you do, both on the pro-life 10 Commandments and other things you do, especially on your radio program. So, folks, check out the Hour of Intercession. If you're not up at 3 a.m. Central Time, I encourage you to download the podcast and check out what Pastor Joseph has and the Lord has for you through that program. Thank you again.
Amen.
All right, exciting stuff. There are so many things that, Wesley, that the Lord allows us to do here.
Yeah,
Men of Honor is one
yeah,
thing.
I was thinking about that.
That's a project that you started, I
Yeah.
think, here.
Yeah, we do a lot of things here at AFR, and AFA obviously. AFR is for those just we got different listeners every day. Just a reminder that AFR is the voice, the radio voice to the parent ministry, which is AFR, or which is AFA, American Family Association, and we've got just a large staff here, over 100 staff here, with different departments, different projects going on, and the 10 Commandments is one of them. So it's a great summer project that AFR is hosting for the month of June, and we want as many people to know about it as possible for the reasons that Pastor Joseph mentioned. So go check out AFR.net and you can type in /10 Commandments, or just go to AFR.net. There's a banner running across the top. This afternoon, I'll mention just briefly, this afternoon we have our second meeting of Men of Honor here locally. Had 30 young men come last week. Looking forward to the same number of young men. We several godly pastors and men that work here at AFA are discipling and investing in local young men in the Word of God. Pastor Joseph's going to come teach the importance of the 10 Commandments. Then we're going to be building birdhouses. So that our skill this afternoon is going to be handiwork or hardware work, and so we'll be using hammers and drills and that type of thing. So looking forward to it. Pray no one hit the finger. And if I'm supposed to be leading that effort, so I got to be on my P's and Q's and making sure that I'm not looking up while I'm talking and hammering.
Yes.
Because that would be embarrassing, right?
Right.
Here's how you hammer, and then you miss.
It would be embarrassing, but I hope someone's videoing if it does
It
happen.
does. Yes. And that will go up on
Yeah.
Facebook, yeah.
All right, Fred.
All right, we've been talking about the breaking news this hour. Hunter Biden, son of President Joe Biden, found guilty on all charges with connection with his purchase of a gun back in 2018. The jury has accepted the evidence that Hunter Biden lied when he filled out that application about not being on hard drugs when he did that purchase. A lot of reaction already coming in. One of those people reacting is Fox legal analyst Andrew McCarthy, former federal prosecutor. This is how he responded to the conviction of all charges of Hunter Biden. 13.
Well, Hunter got exactly what he was asking for. He wanted this trial, he got it, and he got a big guilty verdict because what he did over the years, his actions and his words that provided the government the evidence for that. What he, I think, has done through this is left open the possibility of an appeal. The Second Amendment issues related to having this kind of drug addiction or drug use at the time of buying or possessing a gun is not necessarily settled law through the Supreme Court. So I see this going through an appellate channel where they're challenging the underlying basis of the law, not his conduct itself.
We also have a reaction from another constitutional expert and legal analyst at Fox, Jonathan Turley. And he talks about First Lady Jill Biden being in the courtroom, 14.
That was an interesting moment to have the First Lady come in, because I'm sure the prosecutors were not happy with having this array of Biden family members, very famous figures, behind Hunter. It reminded this jury that this is Biden town. You know, this is Wilmington. This is where the Bidens reside. And it says a lot about the jurors that they overcame that. There was obvious sympathy for the defendant. I had sympathy for the defendant. When you hear his account of his struggle with drugs, you can't be anything but empathetic. But there was also an unavoidable series of criminal acts in all of this. And by saying things like he might not have checked the box, or he had a moment of sobriety, or maybe he was just using alcohol, really, I think, might have insulted some of the jurors. The way that Lowell made it sound is that the question meant, are you doing drugs while you're purchasing this weapon?
While you fill out the form.
He narrowed it so much.
Very interesting. That was Jonathan Turley. Early on, when it was reported that Jill Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, would be there, there were some people saying she's there to intimidate the jury. You know, the First Lady of the United States, the wife of the President of the United States, is sitting in this courtroom. Is she taking notes, you know, about all of this, and will she intimidate the jury? It's very interesting. In closing arguments yesterday, the prosecution lawyer said, and he looked at the audience, and he basically said, no one is above the law.
Right.
Seems we heard that in the Trump trial recently. So you're going to get a lot more reaction to this today. The legal analysts will all be out there offering their dime's worth of expertise on all of this, and we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, so folks, that is the breaking news this morning. Hunter Biden found guilty on all gun charges. His tax case, federal tax charges, that trial is up next. That isn't from, I think, rooted in activities in California. So Hunter Biden has a rough road ahead of him. We're not sure what the sentencing will be for the gun charges, of which he is guilty, been found guilty, but we will wait and see.
Very interesting. Part of the evidence presented by the prosecution, do you know where they drew the evidence from? That laptop.
The laptop. That's right, because there were videos on there, and you could see him doing it. It appeared like he was doing drugs and waving a gun around.
Yes.
And so, you know, the question was, whose gun was it? What were you doing with it? How'd you get it?
Yes.
So that's how all that started. And to your point, Fred, that laptop that was initially by many of the mainstream media said that this is not Hunter Biden's actual laptop, and this sounds like Russian disinformation, all that kind of stuff before the election. So.
The stories kind of run together. Was it the laptop that also had emails on there? Yes.
Well, that laptop
is that the big man email laptop?
I think that's right.
It is a treasure trove of information
Yes, it is.
that the mainstream media and the Justice Department basically quashed. Certainly before the election.
That's right.
You remember all of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So the question is now the DOJ is giving credibility to that laptop. Will that be used in perhaps some other cases?
Right.
Listen, there was a list of, what was it, like 51 members of the intelligence community who signed on to a letter saying this laptop looks like Russian disinformation.
Absolutely.
And it was absolutely election interference in 2020. Because they did not want this laptop getting out and Joe Biden having to answer questions about whether he was the big guy, whether Hunter Biden was working.
They thought, they knew that it would have distracted President Biden's team from their debates and their discussion and his path to presidency.
Yeah.
It would have been a distraction for them, so they squashed it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So many elements in this case.
Those are the things that gets forgotten about, so I'm glad on AFR
Right.
we bring that back up.
We're talking about it.
We're talking about
That's
it.
right.
Yes. Well, on American Family Association, on our programs, we support our men and women in uniform.
Yes.
Amen.
And we want to keep telling their story on this network. Today, very sadly, there is a memorial service for the latest murder. The mainstream media likes to talk about the killing of a police officer. No, police officers are being murdered.
Yes.
And this is a case in Minneapolis. You will remember in the wake of George Floyd, they turned against their police force there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a police officer who died just a few days ago. He was called, they got a call, a 911 call to go to the scene of a shooting. He gets there, this young police officer, his name is Jamal Mitchell, and he gets there and he believes he's going to help someone who was wounded. Well, it turns out that person had a gun and shot and killed this young officer. Memorial service being held there today. So remember, certainly that family. There'll be hundreds from across the nation at this service. But there was a story last week that was particularly irritating. We had a trooper who was killed, in this case in Connecticut. And the story comes from Wethersfield, Connecticut. They wanted to fly the thin blue line flag,
Right.
which is black and white with a thin blue line, to
Right.
honor police officers. Do you know there was city council voted against that because they said that flag is offensive? Now, I want you to
Where
listen.
was that? Where was
This was in Wethersfield, Connecticut, all right? Here's a little bit of the conversation from that city council meeting, cut number 10.
I will absolutely not support the thin blue line flag. That flag was either created or at least became very prevalent in direct response to the Black Lives Matter protests. It's viewed as antagonistic, even if you don't see it that way.
It's become emblematic of white nationalist, neo-Nazi, and alt-right movements in the United States.
Can you imagine? They just want to fly this flag in honor of this trooper who was killed on the job, and they're worried about it being offensive to people.
Wesley, we talked about this yesterday when we talked about how far left the Democratic Party has gone, or how far left the progressives, quote unquote, progressives have gone. Listening to those people say those kinds of things, this is why a lot of people are starting to turn away from the left, because the left is filling up with crazies. That was crazy talk.
Yeah, if you're offended by a flag that's in support of police officers in their day-to-day jobs, then you're the problem. You're the problem.
Listen, now these are two different cases of death for police officers, but in Minneapolis, the cop is black.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, lots of black men and women serve this country in that thin blue line.
Yep, that's right.
So to say it's about white nationalism, it's just insanity.
Yes, it is. It's ignorant. I bet he did it. I bet the guy that said that doesn't even know what you just said about the officer being black. So.
All right, folks, listen. We're going to expose the craziness on this show.
Yes.
And continue to do it.
We're not talking about me.
Right.
We're not talking about you.
That's right. We're low-level crazies.
That's right.
This is high and deep level craziness that we're talking about. All right, folks, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news. As I said, we got to cool down these brains, like when a computer is doing all kinds of great computations. 5-minute break for news. When we come back, we'll have more on today's issues.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio. The Stand is the official online and print publications of the American Family Association, but more than that, it's a hub that connects you with in-depth information about things that can impact you and your family. And it provides biblical encouragement to strengthen your faith and your families. Sign up for a 6-month free trial to the print version and listen to the Stand Radio podcast at afa.net/The Stand. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. A verdict has been reached in the Hunter Biden gun trial in Delaware. The president's son has been found guilty on 3 felony counts related to illegally buying a gun, 2 counts of lying on a federal form, and 1 count of illegally possessing a firearm. Constitutional law expert Jonathan Turley says justice was served.
This jury was able to overcome a nullification strategy. I think part of the problem was that Abby Lowell, the defense attorney, put forward a bunch of defenses in the opening statement that collapsed within 48 hours. The prosecutors did an extraordinarily good job here. They were focused, they were disciplined, and they methodically took apart each of these defenses in front of the jury.
Biden could face up to 25 years in prison, but most law experts agree there will be no jail time. Sam Brown is hoping to pull out a victory in Nevada's GOP Senate primary. Alicia Acuna has more from Las Vegas.
The Sam Brown candidacy is hoping for a really big day and a busy day here, so we'll see about that. He is the leading candidate in the GOP Senate primary. He has significantly outraised the competition. This is a field of 15 other people vying for the GOP primary Senate, and he is also the only one to receive former President Trump's endorsement. He is retired Army veteran Sam Brown. He is also a Purple Heart recipient after being injured in Afghanistan. Brown also heads in today with the endorsements of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, Nevada's governor, and is supported by Senator Mitch McConnell.
Former President Donald Trump is meeting with GOP senators.
Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, the number 3 Senate Republican, inviting the former president to meet with the conference off campus in D.C. Barrasso on the Fox Business Network's Mornings with Maria says Republicans need to be focused on winning in November and governing.
Well, when President Trump is reelected, and I believe he will be, we need to be ready.
The meeting comes as the former president tries to unite Republicans in his quest to take back the White House, but a handful of GOP senators, including Mitt Romney, have not endorsed the presumptive nominee. The invitation comes just a week after the former president was found guilty on 34 counts related to hush money payments, which has faced fierce criticism from Republicans. Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Many Americans are not sold on electric vehicles, according to a new Associated Press and University of Chicago poll. Bronson Woodruff reports why that is.
Mark Morano is publisher at Climate Depot and a former staffer in the U.S. Senate. He told AFN, "You don't need a poll, you can just look at the sales."
Sales are about 7% of electric cars. Even Toyota executives are now admitting that pretty much everyone who wanted to buy an electric car has bought one, and a lot of these are for second cars for people that own them.
Buyers usually wealthier individuals who can afford them and want to buy them.
So the rest of America is scratching their head saying, why do I want something that's way more expensive, even with massive subsidies and tax credits and all the government handouts, that's not practical, that's going to give me range anxiety, that's actually dangerous to use in a colder climate where the battery is going to be very subject to even shorter ranges. And I don't think the Associated Press is capable of understanding this. People are very suspicious when something is mandated and forced on you for your own good or for the alleged good of the planet.
He said he does not think people appreciate corporate government, including the deep state, society, corporate banks making threats of withholding car loans, automakers, and others forcing electric cars on buyers.
People aren't stupid. Another reason they're skeptical is they know these are not earth-friendly cars. Electric vehicles dig the earth. And what they would do with a national charging grid, once you ban gas-powered cars, force everyone in electric cars, have a national charging grid, you don't need another COVID stay-at-home order, lockdown. You can just shut off the national charging grid. I don't trust the government to have that kind of monopoly on our charging grid.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
Stocks fell on Wall Street today ahead of several key inflation reports this week and the Federal Reserve's latest interest rate policy decision. More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks, the award-winning documentary from the American Family Association, is now available in a special limited edition DVD set. This release includes a Sunday school curriculum and 2 hours of additional footage. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to get your copy today. thegodwhospeaks.org. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back, folks, to Today's Issues. We're here on our third and final segment for today. It is June 11th. I forgot to mention that earlier. In case you were wondering what day it is, we are now past a third of June, which is we're approaching halfway through 2024. And it just seems like the year has blown by, perhaps because we have a major election coming up in November. But it certainly seems like we have just buzzed through the first 5 months plus of the year. So, as I mentioned, Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. And Wesley Wildman joins me here in studio. And now it is Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
In for Fred.
What a slow day thus far.
Yeah, it's just funny. We had breaking news, major breaking news, while we were on the air, and Fred and you guys at American Family News do such a great job.
Thank you.
Keeping up with what is happening, folks. If you go to afn.net, that's for American Family News, you will see the stories here regarding the Hunter Biden decision, the jury finding Hunter Biden guilty on all three charges related to gun possession and drug use. So
I do have one more clip we can air from that if you want.
Let's go.
A couple of personalities in the last hour weighing in on this. What you're going to hear now is Judge Jeanine Pirro saying Hunter could very well go to jail for all this. Clip 15.
You know, usually when someone doesn't have a prior, it's a nonviolent crime. You know, there's a lot of consideration given to the defendant. However, the fact that this defendant didn't plead guilty and indicate that he was remorseful is something that allows a federal judge, in terms of the sentencing guidelines, to take that into consideration.
That's kind of listen. I'm not a lawyer, so Wesley, I'm just going to say, in terms of taking that into consideration, I got to say, I think it is perfectly acceptable for someone not to want to plead guilty to charges. Now, the remorse, I don't know. I certainly think a judge should be able to take these kinds of things into consideration, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. We talked about it at the start of the program at the first hour that, you know, a lot of times we hear these things and we don't have time to kind of digest them. Off the top of my head, I don't think that should necessarily mean he goes to prison for this. But maybe when I think about it later, I might change my mind. I don't know.
Well, just to be trying to, again, it's hard to keep up with all the details of all the stories, but trying to be as consistent as possible as we can. You know, my position on when Trump, I understand that I think he was wrongfully convicted.
Right.
Nonetheless, even under their convicting him, under their statute and what they said he did, what they're saying he did still is nonviolent.
Right.
And so my position was, if it's a nonviolent crime, it's a fee. What was
a fine.
It's a fine. And maybe some other types of punishments along those lines, consequences along those lines. These three, they're felons. There's obviously hard evidence here too as well. So I would lean toward holding the same position of, I don't see this as being a prison sentence worthy charge. There's three of them, but you know.
Well, in Trump's case, and I agree with you. I think he was wrong. This is lawfare against President Trump.
Yes.
But it was 34 counts.
Right.
So and I think that's because there were 34 instances or whatever. So
Sure.
I guess now that you said that, I my initial hesitancy, I think I continue to go with that.
Yep.
Because prison is a terrible place, especially if you're well known.
Yeah.
Like Hunter Biden and, of course, President Trump, you're almost asking for something bad to happen to somebody.
Sure.
So, anyway, all right. So we'll wait to see how this plays out. Any idea, Chris, when sentencing is expected to take place?
I was not able to determine that during the whirlwind hour, or really last 35 minutes. It would be this year.
Yeah, it's
sentencing
just June. So the sentencing, I'm guessing within a week or two. So
I do want to direct our listeners' attention to AFN.net. I know you mentioned it a minute ago, but we do already have coverage up here. Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son, convicted of all 3 felonies in federal gun trial. So do check that out. We'll be updating that throughout the day on AFN.net. We're also going to stay on top of this. It's probably the lead story for the rest of the day at the top of the hour on the radio side of things.
Okay.
It is showing, though, that based on his based on the 3 crimes that he's committed and being convicted for, there is a sentencing up to 10 years. Is what they're stating. So, yep.
He has definitely put his father in the Biden administration in a bind here because
bad spot.
Right, hardly a week, maybe even hardly a day goes by without the president or somebody that works for him tweeting or posting something like "Get rid of guns." Yeah, we gotta get rid of gun violence and ban assault weapons. All these things they put out there. So Mr. Tough on Guns is now going to have to be in a position where his son was convicted of doing something he shouldn't have involving a gun form.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that brings something else to mind. They're the Democrats, Biden, his team, his administration also are all about these red gun laws. Red flag laws, trying to find all kind of reasons to make it more difficult, to get guns. Well, and they always say we got to have background check. Well, we got those.
Right.
Background check. He lied.
Right.
So. This is just one more proof that you can put. Now, I'm not saying we don't have laws, or that we don't. That there's not. I'm not saying eliminate a process altogether to get guns, but we have reasonable processes already in place, and criminals break those.
Yes.
So if you're gonna make rules, just keep in mind you don't want to make rules so much so that it makes it difficult for law-abiding citizens to get guns when we all know that criminals are going to get them anyway. In this case, he got his gun.
Yeah.
And he lied.
Right. Yeah. And law-abiding citizens and moral people are not going to lie. So it does create the possibility that all you're doing is preventing law-abiding people from getting guns, but the Hunter Bidens of this world
still got it.
They still got them.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
all right. In other news, if you don't recognize the name Dr. Ethan Haim, you probably will because it's going to be in the news a lot more in the next few days. Dr. Haim is a surgeon in Texas who, in recent weeks, attempted to blow the whistle on what he called secret gender manipulation procedures at Texas Children's Hospital. Dr. Haim has been hit with 4 felony charges for violating HIPAA laws, allegedly, by releasing some of this information to a news outlet in Texas. And the reason I bring this up is because Dr. Ethan Haim was on Fox News Channel's The Ingram Angle last night to defend his actions. I have audio from Dr. Haim here. It is clip 16.
Imagine what happens when you take a vulnerable, confused kid when they're 11 years old and you start them on puberty blockers. What you created is a chronic medical patient. For the rest of their lives, they're going to be tethered to the boundaries of a hospital. They were giving every indication to the public that they were shutting down this program. But I worked there, I did surgery there. I knew categorically this was untrue. They not only continued the program, but expanded it behind closed doors. And especially as a doctor, trust is the most important currency we have. And the fact that they were lying to the public is an egregious violation of medical ethics.
Now, once again, stay with AFN for continuing coverage on this story. I'm trying to get the hospital to respond to the claims you just heard from the hospital, or from the doctor there. Meanwhile, Texas Attorney Marcella Burke is representing Dr. Haim, and she's already issued statements to media saying the government is going after a whistleblower here, adding, quote, "My client is anxious to get to trial to get his side of the story told."
Now, by the way, HIPAA, folks, you've heard this abbreviation before. It's HIPAA stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It's a 1996 law signed into law by President Bill Clinton at the time. But it's part of HIPAA is a requirement that privacy on the part of patients be protected. Okay, and what Dr. Haim is saying is that even though he is a whistleblower and exposed what he claims is the hospital's duplicity with regard to these surgeries and other transitioning processes, that he did not reveal any personal information. However, he claims, Wesley, and then I'll pitch this to you here for your comments. He claims, he said, quote, "I had 3 heavily armed agents," these were federal agents, "at my door 7 a.m. Tuesday to inform me that I was indicted with 4 felonies for blowing the whistle about the largest children's hospital in the world lying to the public about their transgender program," end quote. This is becoming increasingly common on the part of the Biden Justice Department and the FBI, whether it's pro-life people who are arrested and then charged, or in this case, a doctor regarding transgender controversies, showing up heavily armed first thing in the morning. And this doctor saying they're trying to intimidate me, but I'm not going to be silenced. But this is concerning. This is concerning these heavily armed officers.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, as we've seen, and also with the J6ers and others, them using government officials to scare people and to make they're hoping that this will be a ripple effect and other doctors will not follow suit.
Right.
I'm thankful that this doctor has said that he's going to, that he's not going to be intimidated by that. Now, back to the issue, though, with what details we've just went over, there's 2 different issues here. HIPAA, like as y'all pointed out, that's for people's private information. What he's doing, he's telling on them.
Right.
And so, and if they don't like him to, I mean, I don't know how they're going to, they meaning the, I guess it gets it out of facilities, out of hospital. That's a hospital?
Yes.
I'm kind of curious on what the hospital is going to do about that, because either they're doing it or they're not. I mean, if they're breaking the rules and he's telling on them, what are they going to say? I mean, they're going to get mad about that, because if they're breaking the rules, that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm not sure that these are their own rules, but they were publicly telling people we're not doing these surgeries, but then they were doing them behind. And listen, Chris, this is these kinds of transition surgeries. They're very lucrative.
Yes,
there are hospitals that make a lot of money doing these. We've covered this over the last 3 or 4 years, where people discussing this internally in a hospital. There was one in Tennessee not too long ago, couple 2-3 years, where they were advocating. You had people inside the hospital advocating to do these surgeries because it was so lucrative.
Did they have an age? In the story, is there an age mentioned of the restriction of like 16 and older? 16 is this for minors?
Yeah, oftentimes it's generally in a lot of the red states that have moved in this direction, where they are banning what they're calling the gender manipulation of minors or gender mutilation of minors, which includes even giving medications. The general term is people 17 and under.
Right.
But in this particular case, Dr. Haim mentioned an 11-year-old.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Yep. Okay. Wow.
So we will continue to follow this. This is an important case.
Yeah, I've reached out to all of the I think it was like a half a dozen media relations people there at the hospital. More often than not, we get we can't comment on pending litigation kind of thing, to which I will include that because that is their response. And I am trying to get in touch with the attorney. So we have a story that's in the system airing today. Parrish Alford, our long-form reporter, a great guy, is putting together information for AFN.net. So it's not just what you hear on the radio. Visit AFN.net for longer stories featuring more voices you sometimes don't hear on the radio.
I will say this is, I think this is a miscalculation on the part of the hospital.
Right, yes.
If the hospital contacted the federal government and Dr. Haim is saying that this prosecution, quote, is driven by a highly ideological division within the Department of Health and Human Services, end quote. If this was instigated by the hospital, this is a big miscalculation on their part, because if Dr. Haim goes through with this, he doesn't sound like the kind of person who's going to make some kind of deal with with the Justice Department.
Right.
His lawyers are going to be allowed then to go through the discovery process with the hospital. That means emails that they send internally. If somebody said, I'm just saying if, folks, if somebody within the hospital said, let's publicly state that we're going to stop doing it, but let's keep doing it behind the scenes because people are idiots and we can make all kinds of money. All that is going to come out in the trial, and this hospital could be worse off than it would if they had just tried to deal with the blowback because of Dr. Haim's revelations.
You mentioned Health and Human Services there. This is a loaded topic, and we probably wouldn't be able to do it enough justice in the next 9 minutes and 15 seconds. But it's another reason why perhaps we should never have had the federal government create bureaucracies like the Department of Health and Human Services, which can then dangle money over a hospital and say, we're not going to give you this unless you do this, this, and this.
Right.
They already do that with education. For instance, we're not going to give you money if you don't bow the knee to our Title IX changes.
Right.
And do things that people behind Title IX never envisioned 50 years ago when they wrote it into law. So I would imagine at some point the federal government will start doing more of we'll give your hospital this if you do that, but you're not going to get it if you don't go in that direction. We already saw that with COVID shots. They said, hey, hospitals aren't going to get this unless your nurses and doctors get the jab. And the Supreme Court backed that up. But, thankfully ruled it out of like the private sector with other people. But even then, you have a lot of people in the healthcare sector, even still today, claiming religious freedom as to why they should be able to not have to get the jab.
Yeah. Well, that is an issue for another day. My personal opinion is freedom will continue to evaporate in this country. The larger the federal bureaucracy gets, because they are staffed not by people that are elected, but by ideologues who are appointed, and they never get, bad English here, but I'm making a point, they never get unappointed. They stay in their positions almost until they want to retire, and their power over individual citizens just continues to grow.
Yeah, and it would be good, too, if Republicans and moderate Democrats were to have a backbone and stand up to these kinds of things, because more often than not, they shy away or they have these little vague statements or whatnot to avoid the media or somebody coming back to them, what, you're against hospitals getting federal dollars?
Yes.
And
no,
then
I know.
they're like, I'm sorry.
That's the way the game's played.
Yes, it is.
All right, let's move on.
One other topic that has seemingly gotten covered up in a lot of the stuff that's gone on the past month or 6 weeks or so has been the southern border. News alert, it's still broken. Okay.
Yeah.
People are still
Badly.
crossing it. Biden, of course, did do the big show last week where he claimed he was issuing an executive order and we were going to tighten up the southern border, after saying, of course, that he couldn't do anything else by executive order. In recent days, Fox News and Newsmax, OAN, a lot of news outlets on the right, have run hard and heavy with a story on a memo obtained by Fox News telling Border Patrol officers in the San Diego area that they just need to go ahead and release people. And all this comes amid the news coverage of Biden's executive order. I've got a couple of senators here. This is Senator Eric Schmidt talking on Fox News Channel Clip 3.
Only 6 countries are noted in the Eastern Hemisphere. That means if you're from China, if you're a spy from China, you can get here for $5,000 to $10,000, and you'll be in the interior of the United States through catch and release. If you're a terrorist from Iran, same deal.
One other senator we often feature on this here program is Louisiana Senator and Mississippi native John Kennedy, who had this to say. Clip 4.
President Biden has issued a memo quietly to the California region saying that his executive order is only going to apply to 6 countries, just 6 in the Eastern Hemisphere. Right. There are over 100 countries in the Eastern Hemisphere.
If what they say is accurate, what we saw and heard from the Biden administration last week was just a smoke and mirror show.
Well, Wesley, we all knew that.
Yeah. We went over this last week there, and Fred was sitting in here when we went over the long list of exemptions.
Yeah.
And that long list of exemptions for his executive order that's supposed to stop illegal immigrants.
Right.
There's a long list of we didn't even get to all of them. We would have bored you.
Yes.
We would have bored our listening audience if we were able to get to all. We highlighted 4 or 5 of them, and they were obvious that this is smoke and mirrors. And this right here, assuming this is true as well, this is just one more example of him saying, guys, we're going to do something about it because we got to do something about it because it's a big issue. But, hey, guys, at the border, y'all just let them go, all right, when we get them.
We're going to do something about it because it's really important. We're going to do something about it. Hey, guys, don't worry back there. We're not going to do anything about it.
Right. Yes.
So, your point is absolutely valid. The Biden administration knows this issue is high up on the list of voters in terms of issues that seriously concern them. The Biden administration has done squat about it. In fact, they want the open border, but they can't come right out and say that. So they pretend like they're going to do something about it, and they blame Republicans for the problem at the border, but nothing is going to get done.
You know, Biden could be listening. President Biden could be listening to today's issues because a couple months back, I said, you know what? Up to this point, this is several months ago, I said, up to this point, I said, there's an issue at the border, millions have crossed, and he's saying there's not a problem. I said, the least he could do is lie and say he's going to do something about it. Well, here he is. He's lying. And he's saying he's going to do something about it. So he's making steps in the right direction to be a Democrat.
For a guy who has been in some sort of public office for 50-plus years, and was a heartbeat away from the presidency for 8 years, to claim there's not anything else I can do, that you just that's unbelievable.
Well, because as people have mentioned on this show before, he could, if he says he can't do anything, he could reverse his first steps when he took office, when Joe Biden, stopped doing everything President Trump had been doing.
Right.
He reversed all that or deep sixed it. He could at least go back and reverse that.
Yeah. It's the same guy who famously said it's probably illegal, but it's worth it when he extended the moratorium on evictions during COVID. And then he also continues to say things like, MAGA Republicans and the Supreme Court told me I couldn't, but that didn't stop me on student loan relief.
Right.
If he's going to live by that line of thinking, you could throw out some sort of executive action you don't believe you have the authority to do, let it get tangled up in the courts, and at least play itself out while you claim you did something.
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to do anything.
And, Ed, you pointed out at the top of this hour, and when we first started this third segment, that we're blinking, and we're almost in the middle of June.
Yes.
And of course, there's a presidential debate here on June 27th.
That's right.
Just 2 weeks away. So you're blowing by. You're coming up on the election. You got the debate at the end of June. You know, it's gonna be hard to overcome, especially because we know how they're gonna handle it. But it's gonna be hard to overcome the 2 primary issues that have been the primary issues for at least a year, and that's what's going on at the border and people's pocketbook.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things that we'll be covering a lot over the next couple of months on today's issues in AFR and AFN, because those are the 2 primary issues, and President Joe Biden and his administration are seemingly unconcerned about both of those in a way that would be helpful to the American people.
Well, and when you're pointing about the year blowing by, folks, in about 1 month, the Republicans hold their national convention.
Yeah.
We're talking about July 15th. It's the 11th, so in 4 days, we're 30 days away.
Yeah.
And then roughly 30 days after that's the Democratic Party convention.
Yep.
We are zeroing in
we are
on Election Day, and it is going by in the blink of an eye. All right, folks, that is all the time we have for today's Issues Today. More great programming is directly ahead on American Family Radio. We invite you to go to AFR.net and check out the podcasts of some of your favorite shows. Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.